Hello viewers, welcome to this program on BDP. Today we'll be talking on translating drama, and we have with us Dr. Anand Prakash, Senior Reader, Delhi University, who will talk to you on translating drama.
Yes, good evening friends. As you know, translating drama comes under translating literature, because drama is a part of literature, in spite of the fact that some people may say that drama is somewhat exclusive, in the sense that it doesn't belong to the book, doesn't belong to the printed word, and that it belongs to the theatre, it belongs to the actors who speak, and that way drama could be a distinct aspect of literary writing. But for all practical purposes, drama is a part of literature, because drama is the spoken word, and that spoken word is available to us mostly in book form. We in the classrooms read drama, we discuss drama, teachers talk about it, and we write answers on dramatic aspects of drama and dramatic texts. So whatever applies to literary translation also applies to translation of drama, in the sense that it's a world which is a bit different from the actual world, and the writer is consciously writing drama, and that the writer is writing from an angle, from a point of view, the same way as one writes poetry, one writes a short story or a novel. So some of the aspects of translation that were relevant to the texts of fiction and poetry will be common to the text of drama. Keeping that in mind, still there is a great deal of specificity about drama writing, and that's why we have this program under which we discuss translating drama, not translating, that is, poetry or fiction. So the first thing that we notice in the case of drama is that it contains dialogues. There are, of course, informations regarding where the actor will stand, when will he or she make the entry, to whom would the dialogue be addressed, etc., etc. But that is not a part of the dramatic texts. That is understood, or maybe these days it is printed. But when you visualize drama, then there are people standing on the stage and they are talking to one another. So that way the most important part of a drama text is the dialogue. And dialogue means that it's a kind of conversation between two or more people, and that the person who is addressed is the other person in front of the actor. So there are two actors or three actors, and they are talking to one another, and they are talking so directly that sometimes they get involved even at the level of a quarrel, even at the level of a sharp exchange of views, etc., and that creates a sense of drama, as we call it, a sense of conflict. So keep in mind this fact that drama is by and large a dialogue, but then a dialogue per se would be conversation, but this dialogue in drama is regarding a story, regarding a kind of continuity that goes on into the other aspects that follow later. So in dialogue, inherent is the clash, and the clash is because the two or more actors or characters are taking positions of their own kind, and these positions do not agree. Now, because dialogue is language, therefore different kinds of languages, different kinds of language are used in the dialogue. I divide, for instance, the use of language in drama in basically two forms. One is formal language, where let's say that an officer in a state government is talking to one subordinate. So the language will be formal. In the classroom also, the language of the teacher to the students, particularly when the teacher is meeting the class for the first time, will be a formal language, that the students also talk formally to the teacher. In the neighborhood also, if a drama captures the scene of neighborhood, then if people are not acquainted, then they talk in a formal language. And that formal language then mimics, in fact, the reality of life, where people do not know one another. So when a translator takes up such a text where the language is formally used, then a formal equivalent of the language or the words, that will have to be kept in mind, kept in consideration. And this formal language is, of course, is a bit artificial, and that artificiality is a part of the drama of the formal kind. So one cannot be exactly using simple words in such conversations, such dialogues, and the translator will have to keep in mind that the formal language in the original text has to be formally rendered also in the target language. The informal language, there's one more thing that I would like to say about the use of the formal language in drama, that is sometimes characters who are visualized as living 400 years ago from now, before now, these people talked in a language which is not our language today. So formal language or a language that is not our language, not a natural language, that creates a distance between the present audience and the people who spoke that language 400 years ago in a different phase of time. So the formal language presents what is called historicity, and this historicity is one aspect that the audience is interested in, knowing how people spoke at that particular point of time, when things were different, when situations were different from today. The second thing is that in the formal language sometimes irony also can be produced. For instance, if a child starts talking formally to the parents, then it will be ironical. You might have seen some films, and you might have seen some plays also, where there is an army officer or there is a bureaucrat who has a family, and he always remains formal with the children, and children also always talk formally. So if the drama mimics this kind of situation, then even irony can be created, and we start feeling amused that this kind of a language can be used between a father and a son, between a parent and a child. The other thing that I have to stress is that sometimes in drama, informal language also is used, and this informal language is used to create a sense of intimacy. For instance, when two friends talk to one another, away from the eyes of people who see them or who can hear them, when they talk just between themselves, then they become informal. So this informality is used in order to make people feel intimate. And if this informal language is used in the original language, then the translator has to keep in mind that the same informality has to be produced, has to be constructed also in the translation of the drama text. And informal language can be in half sentences, can be in pauses, can be in words, those words which are not exactly used in the public space, but when two people sit there and talk, then sometimes they can use this informal language also. So second thing is that the informal language can create a sense of humor, unlike irony, because irony has some element of bitterness, some element of sarcasm, whereas in humor people tend to laugh, and when you laugh, then of course you laugh because you are cracking a joke, and jokes generally have that informal aspect to them. Now the drama is, as I said in the beginning, is exclusive in one more sense, in the sense that whereas you read a novel and you have the book in your hand and you are sitting very close to it, the gap between you and the book is only a foot or more 1.5 feet. But when you are watching a play, or when you are visualizing a play, even when you are reading it, then you realize that you are a part of the audience, and the stage is far away from you. It could be 10 feet, it could be 20 feet from you, and that the action is taking place there. So there is a big gap between where people sit and where the action is happening. And this space is very important, and it is to be kept in mind by the translator, in the sense that the words have to be specifically used to convey the sense of distance and space between the audience and the stage. The second thing, and that's more important, and this insight I have borrowed from that famous German dramatist of the 20th century, Bertolt Brecht, who said that in the drama text sometimes there is an awareness that the actor and the character are not the same people. that the actor belongs to the present time and the character belongs, let's say, to 200 years ago, and that when the actor is speaking the dialogue of another person who is the character, then also a kind of division occurs, and this division is exploited sometimes by the writer. So how to convey the sense of alienation, the sense of distance between the actor and the character. For instance, there is a person whom you know as an actor, and this person is acting the role of Akbar, and everybody knows that this actor is not Akbar, and that even if he is acting like Akbar, because he might be your friend, he might be your acquaintance, so you know that after some time this person will come off the stage and this person will be just an actor. So this person who is an actor on the stage but also a character, this creates certain problems and certain important situations for the translator, who has to see whether the actor is talking like an actor or if the actor is talking like the character. Now in the initial drama conception, writers did not bother about creating actors on the stage. They said that actors were just at that time one with the character, and therefore you had to focus only upon the characters. But these days what dramaturgy suggests is that the actor also can keep one's integrity intact, and that the actor can project oneself as the character, but then should not forget that he or she also is an actor. So these are the problems that we face while translating a drama text, and it's a very complex job that the translator has to perform, and the complexity has to be within the structure of the words, sentences, half sentences, long statements, etc. And that when clashes occur and when the text suggests that there's going to be a kind of gesture used in the drama, then that is to be a part of the text. Now I'll be using to explain these points certain parts of dramatic texts of.
Yes, sir, before you move to the giving examples to the audience, can I ask you something? I wanted to know whether if you're translating drama into a different cultural in a different cultural context, then do the name of the characters and places necessarily change, or it remains the same?
That's an important aspect, yes. There are different ways in which this problem is solved. For instance, if it's a historical play and the characters belong to another country and at another time, and suppose it's a king or something, then the original name has to be kept. But if you are changing names, keeping in mind the requirements of the present day audience, then I would say that it can be called a translation of drama, and it can also be called adaptation of the drama text. And if you are adapting, then of course you have to change the names of characters, and sometimes you have to transpose those situations which were captured in the original text onto the present atmosphere and environment. But at the moment we are not talking about adaptation. We are talking mostly about translating the text that is drama. And for instance, there are examples of Shakespeare being translated into Hindi. There is a writer in Hindi called Range Raghav who translated the whole of Shakespeare, and he was keeping the original names. Harivansh Rai Bachchan also translated Shakespeare's Macbeth, and he was using the original names of the characters. But these days you have had some films and you have had some translations where it's an Indian name who is supposed to represent the psyche and the psychological makeup of a Macbeth or an Othello. So things are tricky, and they are also opening up now. One doesn't know how to answer this question. But if it is necessary that the audience will not relate to the original text, in that case some freedom can be taken with the text, and names can be changed. There is another way in which names can be changed. For instance, if the name is from a Greek play called Alexander, so what name should we use for Hindi? Now one writer called Jaishankar Prasad in the 1920s and 30s, he said that some Sanskrit words could be of the same using the same sound pattern. So that, Alexander, for instance, in one of his plays became Alakshendra. And Alakshendra is a Sanskrit word, but it's very close to Alexander. So there are different ways of doing it, and I think it will depend on the requirements of the audience, and sometimes, yes, you have to change the names. But then if it's merely translating a drama text, then maybe you can keep the original names, and when it is staged, then the director or the script writer of that play can take liberties with the text and can do it. So the question, Mridula, is open, and it can be viewed in different ways, and I think that there is a point in saying that if the audience doesn't relate to the translated text, then it will be worthwhile using a name that will take the action of the stage closer to the audience.
And another question I would like to put, like, how will a person who's translating drama know that he succeeded in translating whether he has deviated from the original text? How does one judge oneself?
You see, there are a few ways of judging. Yes, once again, there is a difficulty. How does one know that one has done a successful job, a good job of translation, etc.? One thing is that some readings are organized by the translators of close friends who are all conversant with the drama text and the tradition of drama in one's language and other languages. And these closed door readings, they are followed by discussions. And I say that Mohan Rakesh, when he was writing Aadhe Adhure, he was organizing such readings, etc. And when Aadhe Adhure was translated by Bindu Batra into English, then Bindu Batra also showed the translation to the original writer, that is Mohan Rakesh, and that's how certain changes were inserted. So this is possible. The second thing is that sometimes writers and translators, they watch a performance of the text on the stage and they take notes at that time. When the audience is enjoying the play, then the writer, the translator, etc. are taking notes, and in the light of those notes they can change and modify. In fact, the best example is of Shakespeare himself, and that he would not that he was translating a text, but when he was writing a play himself, then also he would make modifications because certain things were not successful, and in his opinion, not successfully projecting the action that he wanted to see on the stage. So what was there in the case of Shakespeare, the original writer, can also happen in the case of the translator, who watches the performance of the translated text on the stage and then knows that this is the way perhaps things would have been slightly better. And it's an ongoing process. Translation, you see, after you make the first draft, then you go to the second draft, and there you make changes, and then you discuss. And sometimes, the word is exact, but the sound is not the same as that of the original. So that also creates a problem. And this is an important point. And of course, all serious writers are mentally prepared to change and modify their original versions to suit the requirement of the original text that there is. So does it address your question?
Of course it addresses my question.
So now I present things with the help of two examples, and these examples have been taken from Mohan Rakesh's plays. One is from his play Ashadh Ka Ek Din, and the other is from the other important play written by him, and that is Aadhe Adhure. And let me first present to you the Hindi text of Ashadh Ka Ek Din in an excerpted form. It is just a short passage, and I'll just comment on the meaning that I get from the text, and whether that meaning has been rendered into acceptable and smooth English by the translator. This is a kind of interaction and exchange of views between Kalidas, who is a character in Ashadh Ka Ek Din, and he's talking to the woman whom he has loved, and the woman who is self-sacrificing, and there is a clash between his scope to progress as a dramatist, for which he has to leave his place, and the woman is asking him to leave the place, and she says, "Don't bother about me, I can stay back." and because you are a great dramatist and you have to go elsewhere to achieve success, etc. So I won't stop you. And Kalidas is in two minds, whether he should stay back and live with his beloved and write the kind of poetry that he has been writing all his life, or that now that the state is recognizing his talent and worth, he should leave the place. And this kind of what I call in Hindi jaddojahad, this kind of struggle, whether he should go away from his beloved or whether he should stay back home and be near her. This is what is captured by Mohan Rakesh in this dialogue, and let's see whether this jaddojahad or the struggle is rendered effectively in the English translation. So first I read the Hindi version. Kalidas says this, and he is talking about shifting to the capital city, where there will be a king, where there will be a court, where there will be very elitist kind of an audience, and he'll capture the attention of a large number of people, and that will give him glamour as well as success. And he's afraid of that, because when you shift to a place where you are going to have a great deal of fame, then that fame exacts its price from you. That fame also imposes a kind of restriction on you, and whether while taking those impositions you will be able to retain the freshness of your view or not. So this is what is bothering Kalidas at this time, and he says to Mallika in the play, Mallika, the woman whom he loves, and he says to her, और उस जीवन की अपनी अपेक्षाएं भी होंगी, उस जीवन, that जीवन which will lead in the capital city. And Mallika says, ये क्यों आवश्यक है कि तुम उन अपेक्षाओं का पालन करो? तुम दूसरों के लिए नई अपेक्षाओं की सृष्टि कर सकते हो. Now I'll say two things about this dialogue. One, that it's a formal dialogue. It's a dialogue and written consciously in a Hindi which is tatsam, which is very close to Sanskrit. And Mohan Rakesh has used this language to create a sense of historicity, because Kalidas is a Sanskrit playwright, and even if he's speaking Hindi, that Hindi has to be closer to the Sanskrit language. Then he says, क्यों आवश्यक है कि तुम उन अपेक्षाओं का पालन करो? Now अपेक्षाएं is expectations, that people expect you in a big city to do certain things. And the woman says, it's not necessary for you to just fulfill the expectations of the audience. तुम दूसरों के लिए नई अपेक्षाओं की सृष्टि कर सकते हो. In fact, instead of bothering about their expectations, you can create new expectations from them. Kalidas responds this way to her. फिर भी कई आशंकाएं उठती हैं, apprehensions. मुझे हृदय में उत्साह का अनुभव नहीं होता. I don't feel enthused. मल्लिका कहती है, मेरी ओर देखो, अब भी उत्साह का अनुभव नहीं होता. विश्वास करो, तुम यहां से जाकर भी यहां से अलग नहीं होगे. यहां की वायु, यहां के मेघ और यहां के हरिण, इन सब को तुम साथ ले जाओगे, और मैं तुमसे दूर नहीं होंगी और उड़कर आते मेघों में घिर जाया करूंगी. There is a bit of sentiment in this dialogue at the end, but then finally what she is saying is that she is freeing him of the obligation of staying back home, and that in fact when he leaves this place and goes to the capital city, then he will not go with a clean slate. He will carry all the atmosphere of this place over to that place. So this is the original written by Mohan Rakesh, and let's see how this has been translated by the English translator. The English translator being Sarah K. Ensley. It is an English lady who has translated this play into English. And let's see how Kalidas speaks the same thing in English. But that life will have demands of its own. Mallika says, why is it necessary that you fulfill these demands? You can create new demands for the others. Now, I use the word expectation, and this translator is using the word demand. So one has to see whether demand is more appropriate or expectation. I think demand is a bit colloquial. Demand is a bit spoken. You make demands on people. And the original author was using the word apekshaएं. He was not saying कि वो आपसे मांग करेंगे. Therefore, that language, the kind of language that is formal language that is there. So here the translator is transforming the formal language into a closer, softer, informal language. So this is how this thing has come up this way. Then Kalidas says, I am hesitant though. I feel no joy in my heart. द ओरिजिनल वॉज, मेरे मन में कई कई आशंकाएं उठती हैं, मुझे हृदय में उत्साह का अनुभव नहीं होता. एंड द ट्रांसलेशन इज, आई एम हेजिटेंट दो, आई फील नो जॉय इन माई हार्ट. सपोज आई ट्रांसलेट इट बैक टू हिंदी, आई वुड से, मैं सोच नहीं पा रहा हूं कि क्या करूं, मेरे दिल में कोई खुशी नहीं हो रही है. This is what the English translation is saying. But anyway, this kind of a problem will always occur in translations. You will think of different meanings when you translate, and each translation will have its weak points and strong points. Mallika says, look at me. Even now you feel no enthusiasm. Believe me, your going away will not mean separation. The wind, the clouds, and the deer, they all go with you. I won't be far from you. Whenever I want to feel close to you, I'll go to the mountain top and there lose myself among the clouds. The author has tried, the translator has tried to go very close to the original meaning, that in the clouds are there at the mountain top only, and the mountain top word didn't occur in the original. It was just badal, but then it has been added in order to help the audience to visualize that clouds are always on the mountain top. So that way it's a good translation, I like it, except the fact that in this translation the author has not been particularly careful about using language of a specific kind, and that the distinction between the formal and the informal language is by and large blurred. So I asked this question from you also, those who would be translating etc., different texts, whether this kind of a sanctity of the language, of a formal or informal language, Sanskritized language or spoken language, whether this should be maintained or whether this should be somewhat broken so that the audience is made accessible to, so that these things are made accessible to the audience and they can enjoy. So I'm throwing a question before you regarding the use of the language in the dialogue that the writers use, both at the level of translation and at the level of the original writing. Then I take the other example, and this example is from Aadhe Adhure, which is translated in Hindi as Halfway House. And let's see whether the translator is able to capture the passion of the original language in the English translation or not. So I first read the Hindi aspect, Hindi translation, Hindi original, and then I'll read out the English translation of it. So this is from Mohan Rakesh's play Aadhe Adhure, and you know that this play is about one person performing 4 or 5 roles, and that there is a woman and there is a young daughter and there is a slightly younger daughter and a son. So it's a play about 4 people, and if you think that this one person is playing 4 or 5 roles, then the characters become 7 or 8. So it's a new technique that the writer used, and one Purush, one man, performed many roles on the stage, and that's how a kind of innovation was introduced on the stage by Mohan Rakesh. So it is Purush Ek, the first person who is talking to the woman, and one is to see that the woman is the wife of this person, but she is called Stri in the play. Purush Ek, this is what he says. पहले मैं जान सकता हूं यहाँ किसी से कि मेरी उम्र कितने साल की है. This is informal language. So informal, in fact, that the author is not keeping track even of the tense, even of the sentence structure and its grammar, because he says जान सकता हूं यहाँ किसी से की. It's a very queer kind of a sentence, and we generally speak such sentences when we are under the stress of expressing ourselves in a tight situation. And Purush Ek must be very irritated. That's why he's saying this. And he's being very formal. क्या मैं जान सकता हूँ? And then he's mixing that formal with the informal language. And of course, the final compounding occurs because he's asking मेरी उम्र कितने साल की है. So somebody on the stage is asking his wife his age. Is something that will rattle, that will shock all the audience, because everybody knows that the wife and others will be knowing. So it's a kind of a question that will not make sense. And Stri knows it, and she asked the question, ऐसी क्या बात कह दी है किसी ने कि, so she is not answering the question, she is not telling him his age, She says, what has happened to you? Has somebody said something so that you have become so irritated that you are asking such a silly question? So in the dialogue form, the woman is trying to irritate, or not deliberately maybe, but she's just asking a question which is slightly nasty. ऐसी क्या बात कह दी किसी ने की? And then she stops. And Purush says, मैं पूछ रहा हूँ कि मेरी उम्र कितने साल है? कितने साल है मेरी उम्र? Once again, the person is irritable, and he is repeating the question, and the translator will have to see this kind of anger, this kind of important anger that the character is showing on the stage, that he has to repeat the question and yet nobody is answering him. And Stree once again is as sharp with him as before, and she says, ये पूछकर तुम्हें जानना क्या है? Why do you ask this question from me? What is the purpose? And Purushek says, हाँ पूछकर ही जानना है आज. Once again the informal language, आज comes at the end. He is not saying आज पूछकर जानना है. हाँ पूछकर ही जानना है आज. कितने साल हो गए हैं मुझे जिंदगी का भार ढोते? उनमें से कितने साल बीते हैं मेरे परिवार की देखरेख करते? और उस सब के बाद मैं आज पहुंचा कहाँ हूं? यहाँ कि जिसे देखो वही मुझसे उल्टे ढंग से बात करता है, जिसे देखो वही मुझसे बदतमीजी से पेश आता है. So this is what he says, and let's see how this has been done in the English translation by Bindu Batra, who translated it quite successfully in English. The first man says, first I'd like to ask you how old I am. The woman, what has anything said that you know that the kind of mixing of the sentence that the original was doing has been slightly smoothened out in the translation. So it has become bland. It's less effective than it would have been if the words had been scattered all over the sentence under a structure where finally one was made to feel that because the author was the character was irritated, and that's why he was making such a sentence. The first man says, I asked you what is my age. The woman, do we have to ask? The first man, yes, I do. For how many years have I been bearing the burden of life? And for how many years have I been looking after this family? And despite that, what have I come to? That everyone answers me back is rude, disrespectful, impertinent, and it goes on. He doesn't complete the sentence. So what I'm saying is that at the level of words, at the level of sentences, at the level of tone, at the level of stresses, etc., experiments are being made both by the writer in the original language and by the translator when he or she translates the text. And that way the text to be translated poses problems of so many kinds that it becomes really a very testing kind of situation where a drama text is to be translated. So I conclude by saying that translating a short story, translating a poem, or translating a novel is entirely different from translating a dramatic text, because in drama more than imaginative literature is involved. It is actual people coming to the stage, speaking dialogues, exchanging views, etc., and without making any statements, and sometimes even fighting, sometimes even coming to blows, sometimes pushing one another. And that the translator of a dramatic text has to keep in mind that words have to be such that they give enough scope to the actors and characters to project their meaning through gestures also. So my conclusion then is that one has to put a lot of emphasis on the spoken word, and the spoken word that will be effective. So half sentences will do. Some liberty can be taken even with grammar, so that the whole finally becomes lifelike, because when we speak in our actual life, then we don't bother about grammatic rules. Very few of us do, unless we are very, very formal. We always take liberties with language, with words, etc. And the same kind of freedom will have to be exercised in the case of rendering a text in another language. And I say that at the same time, this freedom will have to be tempered by the original understanding, the basic understanding of the text by the translator. It's a difficult job, it's a tough job, but it's a very satisfying job also, because when people watch the translated play on the stage and they feel at the level of their life, at the level of their emotions, that actually the action belongs to them, then of course the kind of happiness that accrues to the translator takes care of all the troubles that one went through. So this is what I say. If there are questions, etc., we would be glad to respond to the questions. And the conclusion is open-ended. After all, translation is always open-ended, and there are translations and translations. The tradition carries on. If there's a big author, then you might have even 20 translations of the same text available, and the latest translator will say that perhaps his translation or her translation is better than the previous ones. So that's how translating drama has to be taken up as a very serious job of literary activity.
Thank you, Dr. Anand Prakash, for giving them, for enlightening them in how to translate drama. And I hope our students have benefited from today's program and will apply the things which Dr. Anand Prakash has mentioned to them while translating drama. Thank you.
कोलकाता, कलिकाता या कलकत्ता, आप इसे कुछ भी नाम दें, इसके नाम मात्र से एक ऐसे नगर की छवि जहन में उभरती है जिसका एक समृद्ध इतिहास है। 3 शताब्दी पहले कोलकाता एक छोटा सा गांव होता था, जो इस कालावधि में भारत के सबसे बड़े शहरों में से एक बन गया है। कोलकाता का पुराना नाम कलिकाता था, जो उन 3 गांवों में से एक था जिन्हें जॉब चारनाक ने ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी के कारोबार के लिए चुना था। कोलकाता सन 1911 तक भारत की राजधानी रहा। तब भारत पर अंग्रेजों का शासन था। कोलकाता में ढेर सी ऐसी इमारतों और स्मारकों को देख कोई हैरानी नहीं होती जो आज भी औपनिवेशिक काल की यादें ताजा कर देते हैं। ऐसा ही एक स्थान है विक्टोरिया मेमोरियल। ब्रिटिश हुकूमत के दौरान भारत के वायसरॉय लॉर्ड कर्जन ने क्वीन विक्टोरिया को श्रद्धांजलि देने के लिए विक्टोरिया मेमोरियल बनवाया था। चार जनवरी 1906 को किंग जॉर्ज पंचम ने इसकी नींव रखी थी। वे उस समय प्रिंस ऑफ वेल्स थे। 28 दिसंबर 1921 को किंग एडवर्ड्स अष्टम ने इस पूरी इमारत को क्वीन को समर्पित कर दिया। मेमोरियल को देखकर इटालवी और यूनानी शिल्प के प्रति अंग्रेजों का झुकाव स्पष्ट नजर आता है। इसके गुंबद इस्लामी शैली के हैं। विक्टोरिया मेमोरियल को बनाने में जिस संगमरमर का इस्तेमाल किया गया है, उसका कुछ हिस्सा राजस्थान स्थित मकराना की उन्हीं खानों से आया है जहां से ताजमहल के लिए संगमरमर आया था। गुंबद के ऊपर 16 फुट लंबी कांसे की बनी स्टैचू ऑफ विक्ट्री को बॉल बेयरिंग की मदद से लगाया गया है। जब तेज हवा चलती है तो ये घूमती है। गार्डन ऑफ मेमोरियल को 338 गुना 228 वर्ग फुट क्षेत्र में बनाया गया है। उत्तरी दरवाजे की तरफ जाते हुए क्वीन विक्टोरिया की कांसे की बनी प्रतिमा नजर आती है। क्वीन अपने सिंहासन पर बैठी हैं। दक्षिण दिशा से इस इमारत की ओर बढ़ते हुए किंग एडवर्ड सप्तम की कांसे की बनी प्रतिमा है। विक्टोरिया मेमोरियल में भारत में बनी ऑयल पेंटिंग्स का शानदार संग्रह मौजूद है। इन चित्रों को 1770 से 1835 के बीच यूरोप के कुछ बेहद प्रख्यात कलाकारों ने बनाया। कोलकाता शहर के आरंभिक काल को थॉमस डेनियल की पेंटिंग्स में देखा जा सकता है। कलकत्ता गैलरी में खास तौर पर इस शहर के इतिहास और विकास को दर्शाया गया है और इसे अवश्य देखना चाहिए। विक्टोरिया से चलते हैं अब राइटर्स बिल्डिंग की तरफ, जिसमें फिलहाल पश्चिम बंगाल सरकार का सचिवालय है। ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी के जूनियर राइटर या क्लर्क यहां रहा करते थे। यहां क्योंकि लेखक रहते थे, इसलिए इसका नाम राइटर्स बिल्डिंग पड़ गया। राइटर्स बिल्डिंग का निर्माण 1780 में हुआ था, लेकिन इसके भव्य कोरिंथियन अग्रभाग का निर्माण 1889 में ही हुआ। इसके लंबे लंबे स्तंभ, मेहराबदार गलियारे और इसके मध्य में स्थित पवेलियन इस इमारत को गोथिक शिल्प कला का बेजोड़ नमूना बनाती हैं। यहां 4 मूर्तियां मौजूद हैं जो प्रतीक रूप में विज्ञान, खेती, वाणिज्य तथा न्याय को दर्शाती हैं। जिस जगह आज राइटर्स बिल्डिंग मौजूद है, वहां से कभी औपनिवेशिक गतिविधियों का संचालन हुआ करता था। यहाँ आसपास ही हाई कोर्ट, गवर्नर हाउस और प्रसिद्ध तालाब लाल दिघी मौजूद है। विक्टोरिया मेमोरियल वास्तव में कलकत्ता की एक खास पहचान है।
Gwalior Fort is a pearl in the necklace of the castles of Hind. This is the remark that Babur made about the Gwalior Fort. And right he did. Dutch tourist James Daniel also said something similar about this fort. Both Babur and James Daniel were right in their explanation. This fort is the most dominating feature of Gwalior's skyline. The Gwalior Fort spreads out over an area of 3 square